Thank God, this incredible HFY masterpiece found you today. Witness the legend starting now. My name is Kellex, and I work a job that most species in the galaxy would consider mind-numbingly boring. I am a diplomatic liaison for the Vrin Collective, which is a fancy way of saying I babysit foreign merchants who dock at galactic commerce. Station Theta 7. My job involves smiling with all four of my facial flaps, nodding at the right moments and making sure nobody starts an interstellar incident over a trade dispute involving fungal spores or whatever exotic nonsense is being sold that week. It was a perfectly ordinary rotation cycle when everything went sideways, and by sideways I mean completely, utterly, spectacularly off the rails. I was sitting in my office sipping on a cup of heated drill extract and reviewing import manifests when my communication console lit up like a supernova. The face of Station Commander Vorish appeared on the screen, and let me tell you, Vorish only calls me directly when something has gone horribly wrong or is about to go horribly wrong. There is no in between with that man. Kellex, he said, his mandibles clicking in what I had learned to recognize as extreme irritation. We have a situation in Docking Bay 12. Oh good, a situation. 'Cause those always end well. What kind of situation, Commander? I asked, setting down my cup with the resigned patience of someone who knows their day is about to get significantly worse. And GT, music. And GT, the crack Thor kind, Vorish replied. And my stomach, all three chambers of it, dropped simultaneously. The crack Thor are pirates, not the charming, roguish, steal your cargo and wink kind of pirates you see in entertainment hollows. No, these are the break your limbs first and ask questions never kind of pirates. They are bipedal reptilians with the temperament of a plasma reactor about to overload and the moral compass of a black hole. In short, they are bad news, wrapped in worse news and deep fried in terrible news. How many hostages? I asked. And GT, music. And GT, already pulling up the bay schematics on my secondary screen. 17 mixed species. Crew from a Delpharian cargo vessel that was mid-resupply, Vorish said, his voice music tight. They breached through a maintenance corridor we did not even know was compromised. Station security is attempting negotiations, but the crack Thor are demanding a ransom of 200,000 credits plus a fuel chip plus safe passage out of collective space. I whistled, a sound that came out as more of a hiss through my respiratory slits. That is a steep price. It gets better, Vorish continued, and I could hear the sarcasm dripping from his words. Like acid, they have given us 4 standard hours to comply or they start executing hostages one by one. Our negotiator has been talking to their leader for the past 20 minutes, and I do believe the pirate is actually getting more angry with each passing moment, so that is going well. I pulled up the live security feed from Docking Bay 12. And sure enough, there was our negotiator, a well-meaning Palladi named Drexel, trying his absolute best to reason with a crack Thor who looked like he wanted to bite someone's head off. Literally, the music crack Thor was pacing back and forth, his clawed feet scraping against the deck plating, while his crew of 6 or 7 other pirates kept their weapons trained on a huddled group of terrified hostages. And GT, music. And GT, this was bad. This was very, very bad. "Commander, what do you need from me?" I asked, though I already suspected I was not going to like the answer. "We have another complication," Vorish said, and I wanted to scream. Of course there was another complication. Why would there not be another complication? A human merchant vessel just requested permission to dock at Bay 14, that is 2 sections over from our current crisis. Humans, oh wonderful, just what we needed. Now I should probably explain something about humans for context. They are a relatively new species to the galactic community, having achieved faster than light travel only about 30 cycles ago. In that time, they have made quite the impression on the rest of the galaxy, and by impression, mean they have confused absolutely everyone. Humans are music weird. There is no polite way to say it. They come from a planet called Earth, which, according to every environmental scan ever conducted, should not be able to support life. Too much oxygen, too much water, violent weather patterns, tectonic instability, and predators that would give most species nightmares. And yet humans not only survive there, they thrive. They have turned their death world into a paradise. And GT, music. And GT, or at least their version of paradise. But here is the thing about humans that every species in the galaxy has noticed. They talk a lot. They are chatty, friendly, almost aggressively social. They want to know about your day, your family, your culture, your dietary restrictions. They smile music, constantly showing their flat little teeth in what they insist is a friendly gesture, but which most species find mildly disturbing. Music. They laugh at things that are not funny. They make jokes during serious negotiations. They are music in the opinion of most galactic citizens. Harmless, soft, and far too trusting for their own good. The general consensus is that humans are nice but not particularly impressive. Sure, they have decent technology and they are excellent traders, but in terms of physical prowess or tactical capability, most species consider them middle of the pack. At best, weak music. Eve, I admit, few humans before. They were pleasant enough, if a bit exhausting, with their constant questions and enthusiasm about everything but dangerous. No, nobody considered humans dangerous. You want me to manage the human merchants while security handles the hostage situation? I asked Vorish. Exactly. Keep them occupied, keep them calm, and for the love of the collective, keep them away from docking Bay 12. The last thing we need is a group of civilian merchants panicking or worse, trying to help. Vorish said. I nodded, though he could not see it. Understood, Commander. I will handle it. Good. Their ship is called the Stellar Maven. Captain's name is Rebecca Torres. And GT, music. And GT, standard merchant crew, 4 additional members. Keep them busy for a few hours while we sort this mess out. Communication ended, and I sat back in my chair, rubbing my temples with 2 of my 6 fingers. A hostage situation with crack Thor pirates and babysitting duties for human merchants. What a fantastic day this was turning out to. Music B. I grabbed my data pad, straightened my diplomatic robes, and headed toward docking Bay 4. As I walked through the gleaming corridors of Theta 7, I passed dozens of species going about their business, completely unaware that 2 sections over, 17 beings were being held at gunpoint by some of the most ruthless pirates in the sector. When I arrived at Bay 14, the human ship was just completing its docking sequence. The Stellar Maven was a mid-sized cargo vessel, nothing fancy, with scorch marks along its hull that suggested it had seen some action, asteroid fields, or perhaps some rough atmospheric entries. Practical, functional, very human. The airlock hissed open and out stepped Captain Rebecca Torres. She was tall for a human, close to 2 m, with dark hair pulled back in what I would later learn was called a ponytail. She wore a practical flight suit with various pockets and tools hanging from her belt. Her eyes, a striking shade of brown, scanned music, the docking bay, with what seemed like casual curiosity, and then she smiled at me, that smile, flat teeth, music, wide and friendly, completely disarming. You must be my welcoming music committee, she said, extending her hand in the human gesture of greeting. Captain Rebecca Torres, call me Becca. You are. I pressed my palm against hers, mimicking the handshake I had learned from previous human encounters. Kellex, diplomatic liaison. Welcome to Galactic Commerce Station Theta 7, Captain. Tora. Becca, please. Captain makes me sound old, she said with a laugh, and I heard her crew members chuckling behind her as they emerged from the ship. This is my crew, Miguel, Kenji, Aisha, and Park. Music. They each nodded or waved, all smiles, all friendly, so very, very human. I hope your stay here is pleasant and profitable, I said, launching into my standard welcoming speech. If you need anything at all, please do not hesitate to ask. I am here to assist with any questions or concerns you might have. Actually, Becca said, tilting her head slightly, is everything okay? We picked up some chatter on approach, something about a security situation. My facial flaps twitched. Of course they had heard. Humans and their curiosity, a minor issue, nothing to concern yourself with, I said smoothly, gesturing for them to follow me away from Bay 14. Station security is handling it now. Let me show you to the merchant quarter, where you can set up your trade displays. But as I led them down the corridor, I noticed something that made my skin prickle. Captain Torres was still smiling, still chatting pleasantly with her crew. And GT, music. And GT. But her eyes were not casual anymore. They were scanning every corridor junction, every security camera, every emergency panel we passed. And for just a moment, I felt something I had never felt around humans before. And GT, music. And GT, unease. I led Captain Torres and her crew through the main concourse of Theta 7, pointing out various amenities and trade centers along the way, all while carefully steering them in the opposite direction of docking Bay 12. My plan was simple: keep them occupied, keep them talking, and keep them as far away from the hostage crisis as possible. Except humans have this irritating habit of not following plans. So Kellex, Becca said, walking beside me with her hands casually shoved into her pockets, this security situation you mentioned. And GT, music. And GT, what exactly is going on? I felt my facial flaps twitch again as I said, Captain, it is nothing that concerns civilian merchants. Station security has everything under control. She replied. And GT, music. And GT, and there was something about the way she said it that made me think she did not believe me even slightly. It's just, we heard something about Crag Thor pirates on the comms. That's pretty serious, right? How did she know it was? Crag Thor, I had not mentioned that. The station-wide communication should not have broadcast that level of detail. Where exactly did you hear that? I asked, trying to keep my voice level. Miguel, one of her crew members, a stocky man with graying hair at his temples, shrugged. We monitor a lot of frequencies, old habit from running cargo in less than safe sectors. You pick information, less than safe sectors, of course. Humans had this tendency to go places where most species would refuse to travel. They called it good business opportunities. Everyone else called it suicidal. The Crag Thor are indeed involved, but as I have said, station security is negotiating. I explained, hoping that would be the end of it. These situations typically resolve themselves peacefully once terms are agreed upon, Becca said, and that single syllable carried more skepticism than a full paragraph. For most species, how many hostages? I should not have answered. Every diplomatic music training protocol told me not to answer. But there was something about the directness of her question that made me respond before I could stop myself. 17. I said, and how long has this been going on? Aisha asked. She was a tall woman with dark skin and observant eyes that seemed to catalog everything around us. Approximately 45 minutes, I replied, then immediately regretted providing even that much information. Kenji. Music. A shorter man with quick movements and quicker eyes whistled softly. Crag Thor don't usually have much patience. Station security better work fast. They are experienced professionals, I said, firmly, trying to reassert control of this conversation. Now shall we proceed to the merchant registration office? You will need to file your cargo manifests and trading permits before you can begin commerce. Absolutely, Becca said with that same pleasant smile. But first, would it be possible to get access to the station schematics? Just the public areas, of course. Safety protocols, you know, in case there's an emergency. We like to know where all the exits are. I stopped walking. That was not a normal request. Merchants did not typically ask for station schematics, especially not within 5 minutes of arriving. That is an unusual request, Captain, I said carefully. Is it? She tilted her head, still smiling. I guess it's a human thing. And GT music and GT were kind of paranoid about safety. Comes from growing up on a planet that's constantly trying to kill us, she said it like a joke, but I noticed her crew was not laughing. They were all watching me, waiting for my response, and suddenly I was very aware of how their positions had shifted. They were not clustered together like most merchant crews would be. They had spread out, each of them occupying a different point around me, not threatening, not obvious. And GT music and GT, but definitely intentional. I can provide you with basic emergency evacuation routes, I said slowly, but detailed schematics require security clearance. That'll work, Becca said brightly. Just the basics, you know, where the life support junctions are, main power conduits, ventilation systems, that sort of thing. Why would a merchant need to know where ventilation systems were located before I could respond? My communication device chirped. It was a priority message from Vorish. I held up one hand in apology and stepped a few paces away to take the call privately. Kellex, we have a problem. And GT music and GT, Vorish said without preamble, and his voice sounded strained. The Crag Thor leader just rejected our counteroffer. He is demanding the full ransom amount. No negotiations, and he has moved up the deadline. We now have 2 hours. My blood went cold, well, colder than our cold-blooded music to begin with. What are you going to do? I asked quietly. We are trying to buy more time, but these pirates are getting agitated. I need you to keep those humans away from the section. The last thing we need is civilian casualties if this turns violent. Understood, I said, and ended the call. When I turned back, all 5 humans were watching me. Their expressions had not changed, still friendly, still casual, but their eyes had grown sharp. And GT, music. And GT, bad news. Becca asked. Nothing that concerns you, I said, perhaps a bit too quickly. Now let us proceed with your registration. But as we walked, I noticed the humans were exchanging glances, not obvious, not dramatic. And GT, music. And GT, just tiny flicks of eye contact that seemed to communicate entire conversations. Park, the youngest of the crew, pulled out a handheld device and began tapping on it. Aisha had drifted closer to a wall panel and was studying the directory display. Miguel was looking up at the ceiling, counting something I could not identify. They were mapping the station right in front of me, without even trying to hide it. Captain Torres, I said, injecting some authority into my voice. I must ask that you and your crew remain in the merchant sectors during your stay for your own safety. Oh, absolutely, Becca said, nodding enthusiastically. We wouldn't want to get in the way, although if you don't mind me asking, where exactly is the crisis happening, just so we know which areas to avoid? There it was, the question I knew was coming, and once again I answered when I should not have. Docking Bay 12, but it is completely sealed off, so there's no danger to other sections. Good to know, she said, and I saw her glance at Kenji, who gave the tiniest of nods. What was that? What did that mean? We reached the merchant registration office, and I was preparing to hand them off to the administrative staff when every communication device in the station simultaneously broadcast an emergency alert tone. It was the sound that meant something had gone catastrophically wrong. And GT, music. And GT, Vorish's voice came through tight with controlled panic. All station personnel, be advised, music. The hostage situation has escalated. The Crag Thor have executed one hostage as a demonstration of their seriousness. Repeat, one hostage has been killed. All civilians are to remain in their current locations. This is not a drill. The merchant office went silent. Every being in the room, dozens of species from all over the galaxy, froze in shock and fear, except the humans. I turned to look at Captain Torres, and what I saw made my respiratory slits close. Involuntarily, she was not smiling anymore. Her face had gone completely blank, neutral, empty of all the warmth and friendliness she had displayed since arriving. Her crew had the same expression. It was like watching 5 switches flip simultaneously. One music moment they were friendly merchants, the next they were something else entirely, something I did not have a word for. And GT, music. And GT, Kellex, Becca said, and her voice had Change 2. It was calm flat. Professional, I need you to tell me exactly how many pirates there are, what weapons they're carrying, and the exact layout of docking bay. I cannot give you that information, I said, taking a step back without meaning to. You are civilians. This is a matter for station security. With respect, Miguel said, and there was no respect in his tone at all. Station security just got someone killed, so maybe it's time for a different approach. You need to let us handle this, Aisha added, and the way she said it, it was not a request. Handle this, music, you are merchants, I protested, feeling panic rising in my chest. What could you possibly do that? Trained security forces cannot. Park looked at Kenji, then at Becca, and said something that made no sense to me at all. Ma'am, permission to go shopping. Becca's mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but something close, something cold. Permission granted, she said. Music. Full clearance, no restrictions. The 5 of them turned and started walking away from the merchant office, moving with a purpose and coordination that made everyone in the room instinctively move out of their path. Wait, I called out, hurrying after them. Where are you going? You cannot involve yourselves in this. We're not involving ourselves, Becca called back over her shoulder. We're just going to secure our ship. You know, make sure it's safe, like responsible merchants. That was a lie. That was absolutely a lie. Everything about their body language, their tone, their coordinated movements screamed that they were not going back to their ship. Captain Torres, I am ordering you to stand down, I shouted, which was a mistake because I had no authority to order humans to do anything, and we both knew it. She stopped and turned, and when her eyes met mine, I felt that unease from earlier transform into something much stronger, fear. Kellex, she said quietly, I'm going to give you some advice. Go back to your office. File whatever reports you need to file. And let us handle this. Trust me, you don't want to see what comes next. Why? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. What are you going to do? She did not answer. She just turned and kept walking, her crew falling into formation around her like they had done this 1,000 times before. And GT, music. And GT. And as I stood there in that corridor, watching 5 human merchants stride toward a hostage crisis like they owned the station. And GT, music. And GT, I realized something that sent ice through my veins. They were not walking like merchants at all. They were walking like hunters. I should have stopped them. I should have called station security. I should have done literally anything other than stand there like a frozen statue while 5 human merchants walked off to do who knows what in the middle of a hostage crisis. But I did. Not because some primitive part of my brain, the part that still remembered when my species were prey animals on our home world, told me very clearly to let the predators go about their business. I returned to my office in a daze, trying to convince myself that the humans would simply secure their ship like they said and stay out of trouble. That lasted approximately 7 minutes before my communication console exploded with alerts. Kellex Vorish's voice crackled through, and he sounded significantly more panicked than before. We have lost contact with the pirates. I sat up straight, my facial flaps extending fully in alarm. And GT, music. And GT, what do you mean lost contact? I mean, they are not responding to hails. The Video feed from inside the bay went dark. And half the sensors in that section just stopped working. Vorish was practically shouting now, music, which was extremely uncharacteristic for him. What is happening over there? I do not know, Commander, I said, which was technically true. I had suspicions. Terrible suspicions, but no actual knowledge. The last thing we heard was the Crackers leader shouting something about systems failing, and then nothing. Complete communications blackout. Get down there and find out what is going on. Oh good, go investigate the hostage situation that had suddenly gone silent. That sounded like a wonderful idea that definitely would not result in my untimely death. I grabbed my data pad and headed back toward the docking bay section, my legs feeling significantly less stable than they had an hour ago. As I walked, I kept trying to raise Captain Torres on her communication badge, but I received no response. Music, either she had turned it off or something had happened to her. I really hoped it was the former. When I reached Bay 14, where the Stellar Maven was docked, I found the airlock open and the ship completely empty. Not just empty of people and GT, music and GT, but empty in a way that suggested they had taken equipment with them. The cargo bay doors were unsealed and several storage lockers that had been closed when they arrived were now open and cleaned out. What had they taken, and more importantly, where had they gone? I activated the station security feed on my data pad, scanning through camera angles around Bay 14 and GT, music and GT, nothing. The humans did not appear on any of the feeds. It was like they had simply vanished into thin air, except that was not quite true. When I scrubbed back through the footage, I caught a single frame, just one, showing Park slipping into a maintenance access hatch that led to the ventilation system. Then the camera in that corridor experienced what the system logged as a brief malfunction, and when it came back online, there was no one there. Malfunction, right? How convenient. I stood in that empty corridor listening, and that is when I heard it, a sound that did not belong on a space station. A soft scraping, like something moving through the air ducts above my head. Then silence, then another scrape. Further away, music moving in the direction of docking bay 12. My communication device chirped. It was station security liaison Kellex. We are receiving strange reports from the perimeter around Bay 12. Multiple sensor glitches, personnel reporting movement in restricted areas, but when they investigate, there is nothing there. Define movement, I said, my mouth suddenly very dry. And GT, music and GT, thermal signatures, air pressure changes, that sort of thing, but it is inconsistent. Probably just system errors from whatever the pirates did to knock out communications, probably. Sure, system errors. That explanation made me feel so much better. I was about to respond when a sound came through the security channel that made every survival instinct I possess scream in terror. It was a Cracker pirate, and he was screaming, not shouting, not yelling music orders, but genuinely screaming in fear and pain. Then the channel went dead. What was that? I demanded. Music. What just happened? Unknown, the security officer replied, her voice shaking. That transmission came from inside Bay 12, but we cannot get a visual. All cameras in that section are offline. Another scream, this time from A different pirate came through a different channel. This one was cut off. Mid-sound, like someone had flipped a switch, then silence. And GT, music. And GT, heavy oppressive silence. Commander Vorish, I said into my communicator, I think the humans are involved in this. What, how? They are music merchants. Vorish replied, but I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. I am not certain they are just merchants, I said. Carefully, I am going to try to locate them. Be careful, Kellex, we have no idea what is happening in there. That was the understatement of the cycle. I moved through the corridors toward Bay 12, following the route the humans would have had to take if they used the maintenance tunnels. The station felt different now, quieter, music-like. Something was moving through it that did not want to be noticed. I passed several security officers who looked just as confused, music, and nervous as I felt. Then I saw him. Park, the youngest member of Captain Tor's crew. And GT, music. And GT, he was standing casually near a service junction, examining a data pad like he was checking inventory or something equally mundane. I approached him quickly. And GT, music. And GT, relief flooding through me. Finally, someone who could explain what was happening. Park, I called out, where is Captain Tors? Where is music? The rest of your crew? He looked up at me and smiled, that friendly, harmless human smile. Oh, hey, Kellex, they are out grocery shopping. I stared at him. Grocery shopping in the middle of a hostage crisis while pirates are screaming over the security channels. Yep, he said cheerfully, going back to his data pad. Should not take long. They are pretty good at shopping. What are you doing here? I demanded, my patience wearing dangerously thin. Me, I am on Overwatch, making sure nobody interrupts the shopping trip. He tapped something on his data pad, and I heard a series of clicks echo through the corridor, also monitoring life signs, tracking movements, that sort of thing, you know. Standard support stuff. Standard support stuff for grocery shopping, right? Another scream echoed through the security channel, this one sounding absolutely terrified, followed by a heavy thud and then nothing. Park glanced at his data pad and nodded. Miguel just cleared aisle 3. Good. Time, he's getting faster. Cleared aisle 3. What does that even mean? I asked, but Park just kept smiling. You should probably head back to your office, Kellex. This is not really a spectator-friendly event. Before I could respond, I heard something that made my blood freeze. It was the sound of claws scraping on metal, rapid footfalls. I cracked, their pirate running at full speed. Music. He came around the corner ahead of us, his weapon drawn, his eyes wide with panic. He was not looking where he was going. He was looking behind him, running from something. And GT, music. And GT, he made it perhaps 5 m before a section of the ceiling panel dropped down and Kenji fell on top of him like a stone. From the sky, there was no fight, no struggle, no dramatic confrontation. One moment the pirate was running, the next he was on the ground. And GT, music. And GT, unconscious, and Kenji was already moving, dragging the body into a side corridor and zip-tying his wrists and ankles with practiced efficiency. The entire thing took maybe 4 seconds. Kenji looked up, saw me staring, gave a little wave, and then vanished back into the ceiling through a maintenance hatch. I had not even known was there. And GT, music. And GT, what I said slowly in the name of the collective was that was Kenji. Music. Park replied helpfully, he is really good at verticality, always has been. I think it is a parkour thing. And GT, music. And GT, a parkour thing, I repeated numbly. Yep. You should see Ayasha though, she is doing the lower access tunnels. Way harder angles down there, but she moves like water. It is honestly kind of beautiful to watch. I could not form words, my brain had simply stopped processing reality in any meaningful way. The security channel crackled too. Life again, this is Perimeter Team 7, we just found 3 unconscious. Cracked there in a storage closet, they are tied up and gagged. How did they even get in there? The door was locked from the outside. Park checked his data pad. Oh, that was Becca, she wanted to thin out the numbers before going for the hostage room. Smart really, music. Fewer complications that way, she is taking out armed pirates, I said slowly, and putting them in storage closets. Well, yeah, you cannot just leave unconscious people lying around, that is a tripping hazard. A tripping music hazard. We had armed pirates being systematically neutralized by human merchants, and this human was concerned about tripping hazards. Another voice came through the security channel. Commander Vorish, we have movement in the ventilation system above Bay 12. Something big. That will be Miguel, Park said conversationally. He is the breacher. Once Becca gives the signal, he will drop in through the roof access and handle the leader. Guy is built like a tank. You do not want to be on the receiving end when Miguel decides to get physical. How are they doing this? I whispered. And GT, music. And GT, no weapons discharged, no alarms triggered, nothing. They are moving through the station like ghosts. Park finally looked up from his data pad, and his expression was serious for the first time since I had met him. Kelix, we are not ghosts, we are humans, and humans have been hunting things for a very, very long time. We are just really good at it, but you are merchants, I protested weakly. Yeah, Park said with a shrug, we are merchants who came from a species of apex predators. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. On Earth you can be anything you want and still know how to hunt. It is just part of being human. The security channel erupted with confused chatter. More pirates found unconscious in impossible locations. Weapons confiscated. Hostages reported hearing movement but seeing nothing. The leader screaming orders that no one was responding to because his entire crew had been systematically eliminated without a single shot being fired, and through it all 5 human merchants moved through galactic commerce. Music. Station Theta 7, like the apex predators. They apparently were hunting with a patience and precision that most military forces would envy. I looked at Park, who had gone back to monitoring his data pad with that same friendly smile. Grocery shopping, I said flatly. Grocery shopping, he confirmed cheerfully. I decided right then that I never ever wanted to go grocery shopping with humans. The main ventilation grate in the corridor exploded outward with a metallic screech, and Captain Rebecca Torres emerged, followed by a stream of confused, terrified but very much alive hostages. She dropped to the deck with barely a sound, then turned to help the hostages down one by one, speaking to them in calm, reassuring tones. You are okay. Now just breathe. Station medical is on the way. You are safe. Behind them, Aisha appeared from a side access tunnel, guiding 3 more hostages. Miguel dropped from a ceiling hatch with the last 2. Kenji materialized from somewhere I could not even identify, because apparently humans could teleport now, and I would just have to accept that within 60 seconds all 17 hostages were accounted for, shaken but unharmed. 0 casualties, except for Pirate Consciousness, which had taken a severe beating. Station security arrived moments later, weapons drawn, looking absolutely baffled at the scene before them. Commander Voresh pushed through the crowd, his mandibles clicking rapidly as he took in the rescued hostages, the calm humans, and the complete absence of chaos. Where are the pirates? He demanded. Secured in various locations throughout the section, Becca replied, pulling off a pair of thin tactical gloves I had not noticed she was wearing. 7 in total, all alive, all restrained, all ready for you to collect. Park has the coordinates on his data pad. Park stepped forward and handed his device to a stunned security officer. Locations are marked. Oh, and you will want to check storage closet 12C first. Those 3 have been down the longest, and you should probably make sure they are still breathing okay. Voresh looked at me. I looked at the humans. Music. The humans looked completely unbothered, like they had just finished a light afternoon stroll rather than a surgical strike against armed hostiles in a confined space. How? Voresh said, and his voice was barely controlled. Did you do this? And GT, music. And GT. We had 40 security personnel on standby. Tactical teams ready to breach. Music. Negotiators working on a peaceful solution, and you 5 just walked in and ended it in under 20 minutes. 18 minutes actually, Miguel corrected. Helpfully, we had to wait for the life support cycle to mask our entry sounds. Added 2 minutes music to the timeline. I found my voice finally. Captain Torres, you owe us an explanation right now. Becca looked at me, and that cold, blank expression from earlier was gone. The friendly merchant was back. And GT, music. And GT, like flipping a switch. But now I knew what lay beneath that smile, and it was terrifying. You want an explanation? She asked. Okay, here it is. Humans are persistence, predators from a death world. Do you know what that means? I know our species classified as hazardous, Voresh said slowly. Hazardous is putting it mildly, Kenji said with a laugh. Our planet has been trying to kill us since before we developed opposable thumbs. Predators, diseases, weather, geology, you name it. Everything on Earth is either trying to eat us or poison us or crush us, so we adapted. Aisha continued, picking up the thread seamlessly. We became endurance hunters. We cannot outrun most prey, cannot overpower most predators. So we learn to outlast them. We track, we wait, we adapt, and we never ever give up. But that is hunting animals, I protested. This was a tactical military operation. Same principle, Becca said with a shrug. Humans have been hunting each other almost as long as we have been hunting animals. We have had thousands of years to perfect the art of warfare, ambush tactics, guerrilla warfare, psychological operations, asymmetric combat, music. You name it, humans have tried it. We have gotten very, very good at applying violence efficiently. You said you were merchants, Vorash accused. Music. We are merchants, Miguel replied. Calmly, I used to run a shipping company. Kenji was a cargo pilot. Aisha worked in logistics. Park is our communications specialist, and Becca was a freight coordinator. And GT, music. And GT before that though, Becca said, and her smile had an edge to it now. I was military Marine Corps force. Reconnaissance, Miguel was Army Rangers. Kenji flew combat missions. Aisha was intelligence. Park was Navy Special Warfare Communications. The pieces clicked into place in my mind with horrible clarity. The questions I whispered. When you arrived, you were asking about the pirates, the station layout, the security response. Reconnaissance, Becca confirmed. Basic intelligence gathering, you answered every question we asked. Kellex. And GT, music. And GT, you told us the threat assessment, the timeline, the location, the security posture. We had everything we needed before we even finished the welcome tour. You music were not being curious, I said, feeling sick. You were targeting. We were doing both. She replied, humans are excellent at multitasking. Vorash's mandibles were clicking so fast they were almost humming. You infiltrated a secured section of the station, neutralized 7 armed hostiles, rescued 17 hostages, and caused 0 collateral damage. All music without firing a single shot or triggering a single alarm. That should be impossible. For most species it probably is, Aisha said, but humans spent millennia being the weak ones in the food chain. We learned to be quiet, to be patient, to strike from unexpected angles. We learned to use tools, to adapt our environment, to think 3 steps ahead. It is in our nature. The pirates executed a hostage, I said quietly, remembering the moment everything changed. That is when you stopped smiling. Becca's expression hardened. They made it personal. Music. There is a difference between a business transaction gone wrong and murder. We do not negotiate with people who murder innocents. We stop them with extreme efficiency. Apparently, Vorash muttered. Commander, with respect, your negotiators were doing their best, but they were operating under the assumption that the crack Thor wanted to negotiate. Miguel said they did not. They wanted the ransom, sure, but they were always going to kill hostages. That is what they music do, so we adapted our approach. You hunted them, I said. We removed the threat, Becca corrected. Hunting implies sport. This was just problem solving with a very specific set of skills. Park grinned. Also, it felt good. Those guys were jerks. Medical teams arrived and began attending to the hostages. Security officers moved off to collect the unconscious pirates from their various storage locations. The crisis was over. Just like that, 18 minutes and 5 human merchants had accomplished what an entire station security force could not. I watched as the humans gathered their gear, casual conversation flowing between them like they had just finished running errands instead of conducting hostage rescue operation. They were laughing about something Miguel said, teasing Kenji about almost missing a ceiling panel, completely at ease. Captain Tours, I called out as they music prepared to leave. She turned back, eyebrows raised. Yeah, why'd you help? You could have stayed on your ship, stayed safe. This was music, not your problem. She looked at me like I had asked why water was wet. 17. Innocent people were going to die if someone did not do something. We could do something, music. So we did. She paused, then added, that is also a human thing. We have this annoying habit of helping people. And GT, music. And GT, even when it is not strategically advantageous, especially then. Actually, your species is absolutely terrifying, I said honestly. And GT, music. And GT, yeah, she agreed cheerfully, but we are terrifying in your corner, not against you. Remember that, Kellex. Humans make really good friends and really bad enemies. The trick is figuring out which one you want us to be. With that, she and her crew walked away, already discussing trade routes and cargo manifests like the last 20 minutes had not even happened. Just 5 merchants going about music their business, leaving behind a station full of beings who would never look at humans the same way again. Commander Vorash stood beside me watching them go. I need to file a report about this, he said weakly. Good luck explaining it, I replied. I was here and I still do not believe music it. What do I even say? That 5 human merchants infiltrated our station. And GT, music. And GT conducted a precision military operation and then went back to talking about shipping rates. You say that humans are not what we thought they were, I said. Clicked in what I had learned was his version of nervous laughter. The galaxy is not ready for this information. No, I agreed, but they are going to learn it anyway because something tells me this is not the first time humans have done something like this, and it will not be the last. We stood there in silence, watching the humans disappear around a corner, their laughter echoing back through the corridor. Friendly, helpful, terrifying humans. The galaxy had no idea what it had welcomed into the community, but it was about to find out. I spent the next 3 hours writing and rewriting my report to the RIN Collective. How do you explain to your superiors that everything we thought we knew about humans was catastrophically wrong? How do you put into words that the friendly, chatty, harmless merchants we had been casually dismissing for the past 30 cycles were actually apex predators who had simply chosen not to show their teeth? In the end, I settled for brutal honesty. Humans are not weak. They are patient. They are not harmless. They are selective about when they apply harm. They are not naive. They are collecting information while we assume they are simply being friendly. The galaxy has fundamentally misunderstood this species, and we need to correct that error immediately before someone makes the fatal mistake of threatening them. The response from the collective came back within hours, which never happens. Apparently, my report caused quite the stir. Within a day, warnings were music being distributed through diplomatic channels across the galaxy. New protocols were established for human contact. And GT, music. And GT, nothing restrictive, nothing that would insult them, but guidelines that essentially boiled down to be polite. And GT, music. And GT, be honest, and for the love of all that is sacred, do not threaten them or anyone they have decided to protect. The Crackthor pirates, once they regained consciousness, were interviewed by station security. Every single one of them refused to discuss what happened. They just stared at the walls with wide eyes and asked when they would be transferred off the station, away from the humans. The hostages recovered physically within days, but several of them filed requests to meet Captain Torres and her crew before they departed. And GT, music. And GT, they wanted to thank the humans. Personally, I attended one of these meetings, watching as Becca and her team smiled and laughed and accepted gratitude with humble words like anyone would have done the same, which we all knew was a lie. No one else would have done the same, no one else could. As the Stellar Maven prepared to depart Theta 7, I went to the docking bay to see them off. Becca was running through her pre-flight checklist when I approached. Captain Torres, I said, I wanted to thank you for what you did. She looked up and smiled, that same warm, friendly smile I had seen when she first arrived. Just doing what felt right, Killix. No thanks necessary. I also wanted to apologize, I continued. We underestimated your species badly. Most people do, she said with a laugh. We do not take it personally. It is actually kind of useful being underestimated. People tell us things they would not tell someone they considered a threat. There it was again, that casual admission that humans were always collecting information, even when they seemed like they were just making friendly conversation. The galaxy is going to see humans differently now, I said. Maybe, Becca replied, sealing a cargo panel, or maybe they will just think this was a one-time thing. Either way, we will keep being merchants, keep trading, keep making friends. That is what we do. The other stuff, that is only for emergencies. I hope there are no more emergencies then, I said. You and me both, she agreed. Then she paused and looked at me seriously. Killix, can I give you one more piece of advice? And GT, music. And GT, human Tavret, please. We are most dangerous when we are being polite. If a human stops smiling, stops being friendly, stops making jokes, that is when you should worry, because that means we have switched from social mode to problem-solving mode. And when humans decide something is a problem that needs solving, music, we are very thorough. I thought about the moment in the merchant office when her smile had vanished, the cold calculation that had replaced warmth, the systematic elimination of 7 armed pirates in under 20 minutes. Very thorough indeed. I will remember that, I said quietly. She gave me a small salute, climbed aboard her ship, and within minutes the Stellar Maven had undocked and jumped to faster than light speed, carrying 5 human merchants off to their next destination. I stood in that docking bay for a long time after they left, thinking about everything I had learned. Humans were not what we thought. They were something far more complex, far more capable, and far more dangerous than their friendly exterior suggested. But they were also something else, something the galaxy desperately needed, even if we did not know it yet. And GT, music. And GT, they were protectors, hunters who used their skills to defend the weak rather than prey on them, apex predators who had chosen cooperation over domination. The galaxy was lucky humans had decided to be our friends, because after seeing what they could do to their enemies, I never ever wanted to see a human stop smiling at me. That would mean I had become the problem. And humans were exceptionally good at solving problems.